Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about properties of real numbers. And before we get into the lesson, I just want to remind everyone that you need to be keeping up with the assignments. The assignments you can do multiple times. So if you don't get a score that you like, you can redo it. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Plus, I will be holding Zoom meetings, voluntary Zoom meetings, if you need any additional help. The Zoom meetings, the time, and the link to them can be found on the Unit 1 link and on the homepage. All right, so I'm going to close this out and we'll get started with the lesson here. So we're talking about properties of real numbers. There's 5 that we're going to look at first. And the first one is called the commutative property. The commutative property has the root word commute. If you commute to a college, that means you live at home and you drive to campus every day, or walk or ride your bike to campus. So you're changing your location. So commutative means you change the location of the numbers you're adding together or multiplying together. You change the order. So we got A plus B is equal to B plus A. The order changes. The location of my variables change. Here's the commutative property for multiplication. It says you can multiply 2 numbers together in any order and they're going to equal each other. A times B is the same as B times A. Next property I want to look at is the associative property. The associative property has the root word associate. When you think about associate, you associate with groups of people. So think about grouping. Here are the 2 properties for associative for addition and associative for multiplication. Notice on this here we got A, B, C. Over here we got A, B, C. The order is the same, but what changed is what's being grouped together. Over here we got A plus B grouped together. Over here we got B plus C together. Same over here. The order stays the same. The order of the letters is the same on both the left and the right side, but what changes is what's being grouped together. So that's usually a dead giveaway for the associative property. Next property we're going to look at is the identity property for addition. It says A plus 0 is equal to A. So it says if you take some real number, add 0 to it, you get the same real number back. The identity for multiplication says you take some real number times 1, you get the same real number back. It's kind of like looking into a mirror. If you're A, looking in the mirror, you see yourself A. You get the same thing back. That's the identity. The inverse is kind of the opposite of the identity. The inverse for addition says A plus negative A is equal to 0. And the inverse for multiplication would be A times its reciprocal is equal to 1. Or 1 over A. 1 over A is the reciprocal of A. These are inverses of each other. A and 1 over A are inverses. A and negative A are inverses. Also, you can refer to it as the opposite. Just like over here, we can refer to this as the reciprocal. And then we have the closure property. The closure property for addition says if 2 real numbers A and B are added together, then the result is a real number. Same for multiplication. If you take 2 real numbers, multiply them together, you're going to get a real number back. And then we have one more I want to look at. We have seen this one already, the distributive property. Okay, now the distributive property is only one. Okay, it's not distributive property for addition or distributive property for multiplication. It's not neither one of those. It's just the distributive property because it involves both operations. It's when you have something grouped together and you got a number in front of it. What you can do is you can remove the grouping symbols by taking the number in front and multiplying by the numbers inside. That gets rid of the grouping symbols. You can do it for subtraction as well. All right, so now we're going to use these properties. And we're going to look at some examples here. This is what you're going to do on today's assignment. So if you look over here, I have a bunch of equations. It says name the property illustrated by each equation. So let's look at example A here. -6/7 plus 0 is equal to -6/7. So you start with a number, add 0 to it, you get the same number back. Well, that's the identity property for addition. Okay? And when you're doing this, I don't want you to just write identity property. I want you to tell me whether it's for multiplication or for addition. All right, let's look at B. 8 plus 43 is equal to 43 plus 8. I always compare the left side to the right side. I'm trying to find the difference. What's different from the left and the right? The order. Anytime the order changes, that's a dead giveaway for the commutative property. Okay, what are we doing here? We're adding. So this is the commutative property of addition. All right, C, 1 times 21 equals 21. We take a number times 1, and we get the same number back. So that's the identity, and we're multiplying. So that's the identity property of multiplication. All right, D, the quantity -7 plus 4 plus 1 is equal to -7 plus the quantity 4 plus 1. Look at the left side, look at the right side. What's different from the left and the right? Did the order change? The order did not change. It's still -7, 4, 1 on both sides. But what changed is what's being grouped together, what's being associated together. So this is the associative property of addition. All right, let's look at E. We got the quantity A plus B times C is equal to the quantity B times A multiplied by C. If you look, what's being grouped together on both sides of the equation, both A and B are being grouped together. So we're not changing the grouping. The two same variables are being grouped together on both sides. But what did change was the order. So anytime the order changes, again, that's a dead giveaway for the commutative property. Well, what switched? The A and the B switch. What's being done to the A and B? They're being multiplied together. So this is an example of the commutative property of multiplication. All right, F, -0.5 times -2 equals 1. Well, if you remember, -0.5 as a fraction is -1/2. So -1/2 and -2 are inverses of each other. They're reciprocals of each other. So this is the inverse property of multiplication. And then last, we got 3 times the quantity n plus 4 equals 3n plus 12. So what changed? Well, this side we have grouping symbols. Over here we don't have any. So normally when the grouping symbols is removed, that's probably a dead giveaway for the distributive property. Are we taking this 3 and multiplying by the n, and then taking the 3 and multiplying by the 4? Yes. So this is just the distributive property. And again, the distributive property is just the distributive property. It's not one for addition or one for multiplication.